Okay, welcome everyone. I think we'll make a start. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Tea Cultures of the North, connecting to the plant wisdom of the Arctic. And we're very, very pleased to welcome our speakers today, Andersson Martti, Martyna Vengrytė, and Katja Misikanga. So thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. And I'd just like to mention some of the organizations that have helped to make this seminar today possible. The first is Gifts from the Sentient Forest, which is based in Rovaniemi, Finland, in the Lapland area of northern Finland. Gifts from the Sentient Forest is sponsored and supported by the Kone Foundation, wonderful arts funding organization in Helsinki. And you're very welcome to stay in touch at the email address there. I'll also post that in the chat, and to check out some of our other events at sentientforestproject.com. And I'd also like to acknowledge the White Horse Press, one of our partners for today's seminar. The White Horse Press is a fantastic independent publisher of scholarly books and journals on the environment, history, and society. And we're very pleased to have James Rice with us today in the audience. James is one of the publishers there, along with Sarah Johnson. Thank you, Sarah and James, for supporting the event today. And I just wanted to mention that this is a journal published by the White Horse Press. It's Plant Perspectives, everything to do about plant life and human plant relations. Have a look. It's an open access journal. I'll also post that link in the chat for anyone who is interested. This is the third issue of the journal. It's just been released this morning, so lots of great content there. And our third partner today is the brand new International Network for Tea Studies, INTS, just formed last year. And I think we have Anthony in the audience as well. So thanks, Anthony, for supporting the event. And it's great to bring together these three organizations to make today's event possible. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker. We'll have three speakers. Åsa Andersson Martti will be our first speaker. And I'd like to introduce you to Åsa. So Åsa is an Indigenous Sámi and Tornedalian artist, healer, and academic researcher. Åsa has studied landscaping, psychology, religion, rhetoric, dreams, traditional Chinese medicine, and Sámi traditional healing practices. She is the founder of the historical and animistic pilgrim trail, Sámi Trail of Tears, based on her mother's childhood memories. And Åsa will discuss with you today a very timely topic, spring immunity teas of Sápmi. So thank you so much, Åsa, for joining us today, and please begin when you are ready.
Thank you. I will start my story. Let's see if I can find it somewhere. That's weird. No. Okay. Well, it was here when, I started
disappearing slideshow.
Oh my God. Screen. Let's see.
Is it one of the tabs maybe that you've minimized? Or?
Yeah, let's see. Otherwise, I just will talk.
Yeah.
Also works. Ah, no. Let's see here. But let's see how to share that one.
Mm-hmm.
No. This is an interesting problem. It worked so well when I started. Do we have any tech-savvy people here who can maybe because I can see it on my screen, but how to get it up on the Zoom, that's another question.
So have you clicked share and then you see a window?
Yeah.
One of those windows should be your slides, your PowerPoint. Does that come up? Sometimes you'll have multiple windows when you click
Yeah,
share.
I'm an expert on the multiple. I try share again. Ah, voila. Let's see.
Okay.
This one.
Yeah,
You
perfect.
see?
Yeah, that's great.
Ah,
Nice.
finally. And then let's now we get the bigger one. Well, that might do. All right. So sorry for the tech stuff, but I'm sitting in Kiruna, which is in the Swedish Sápmi. And let's see, it will be here is where I'm sitting. And I want to acknowledge that Kiruna is the Swedish word for mountain ptarmigan, which in Sami is Giron, and Swedified it's Kiruna. So that is how the name we have. And I'm going to go more towards the east. We have Rovaniemi here, and this is the border between Finland and Sweden, which is like fairly new, I will say. But so we will move more to the east to this river you see here, which is the village of Lainio. And John mentioned that I started a project called the Sámi Trail of Tears based on the forced dislocation of indigenous people. And it's based on my mother's childhood memories. And I'm going to recall her stories again. And now in the form and shape of herbs, early spring herbs. So Lainio is one of the oldest settlements in this region. It's named in 1650, but archaeological excavations found a high culture that is approximately 7,000 years old with a lot of advanced iron making and foraging things. And it's about 200 kilometers above the Arctic Circle. The language is North Sami, Meänkieli, which is Finnish, and then Swedish, since not so long ago, actually. I want to introduce this man with this legend, I have to say. Is called Vaagina-Pekka. And Vaagina-Pekka was the village shaman and wise herbalist. And he was also my mother's godfather. So Vaagina-Pekka is said to have walked to the northern shore of Norway, which is above above Finland and Sweden, actually, and to find the work on whale ships, whale hunting ships, in order to boil oil from the whales to lit up London, basically. But he thought that was a gruesome work, so he went back. But the name Vagina might point to that direction too. So his name might have been Orca Petrus in English, but it's Vaagina-Pekka. And his place is, well, that's what you see, basically. And to the left was a bed. And under the bed, he had an ant stack of red ants. And he said, because spring will bring in the ants, often wake up the ants. And he said, no, you're not supposed to touch the ants. When my mother, as a small child, went to see him, don't step on them, be very careful. They are my friends because they are cleaning my place. And we have a deal. They are not entering my bed. They are absolutely walking, you know, on the floor, and they, in the cracks of the wooden floor, they go out. And then he had this stove, you can see, and the coffee, and here you have another thing to boil stuff in, and the fireplace, and the pipe. The pipe will be of interest further in this story. But this is a legend. This is a true legend. And he was a magician. of magnitude. Also, another short story before I go to the ethnobotany is that if anyone died in a house, they called for Vagina-Pekka. And he said, the soul goes to God, but the bad parts of the person, like anger and that sort, it can be stuck in the house, and especially in the clock you have hanging on the wall. In old times, it was very loud, and you had to manually or mechanically wind it up, every morning in order for it to work during the day, the timekeepers. And bad habits tend to get stuck in these machine, like some weird machine elf or something like that. So he was particularly thorough in cleaning the clocks hanging on the wall. So these things that have a rhythmic thing, according to Vagina-Pekka, bad stuff can cling to those. I thought it was a good thing to know. So I will continue with these to tell that environment shape and form coping strategies, and especially big flus and pandemics and common flus and spring flus, whatever. That is my theme. So we had the Spanish flu coming in the beginning of 20th century, and it also hit Sápmi and that was of course a devastating flu. Then we had the Asian flu a bit later. Then also tuberculosis, TB was a big one. And this environment that we live in are not that populated. It's few doctors, if any, MDs, medicinal doctors. It is vast distances to health centers, bad infrastructure, bad roads, and the people was generally poor. But we had shamans with inherited wisdom. And there's a few household go-to herbal medicines. And I will talk about two. It's Tussilago or coltsfoot, and Salix, which is goat's willow, if I translated it right. And these herbs are addressing common influenza symptoms like cough, phlegm, asthma, hoarseness, and tightness of the chest, various lung ailments, headaches, and other conditions, also including lumbago, lower backache, urinary tract problems, and actually kidney problems as well. This is the traditional way of thinking about these herbs and the use of the herbs. And they are also quite energetic in the terms of, the pictures. I forgot to tell you that the picture on this legendary shaman, Vagina-Pekka, is probably from the Samuli Paula-Harju, the famous ethnographer and professor in folklore, who walked up to Sápmi and Lapland every year, and he stayed at the Martti household, always my family's household, and he visited many villages, and he made an amazing he made the maps, and he took photos, and he collected history. It's amazing work. And his work is to be found, I think, in Oulu in Finland. Anyways, so the other pictures are basically mine, and this one, which is not super fancy, let's say, but it is from last spring outside the window where I sit and talk. And it is these pioneering herbs that comes, the first ones, and Tussilago or coltsfoot is one of the pioneers. And you see how happy, if you check into your body right now, and doesn't it, I mean, it comes where it looks kind of scrappy and, whatever, like it's muddy and it's brown and gray and dull in the spring. And all of a sudden, like overnight, this super bright yellow flower sprouts. And it's like, it's only it's a stem and a flower. The leaves comes way later. And it's also the savior of the insects that hibernated, the first generation of insects that had survived a very cold and strong winter. So it is a savior for so many creatures, including humans. Also you said, John, that we had participants from Asia, from all over the world, basically. Therefore, I choose these plants, especially Tussilago. It's everywhere, basically, in all parts of the world, more or less. So, and it's go by also the name of cough wort. So it is from the Latin word tussis, which means cough, and ago, which means to act on. So it is very strong, energetic, and fast acting. So, and in this shaman world, as well as in older times, like when Linnaeus, the botanist of Uppsala in Sweden, was alive, they looked at these correspondence ideas. Like if you think of a walnut, it looks like a human brain, and it's actually good for the brain because the oils and stuff. And this is the same. They look at the flower itself, and this one is so strong. It's one of the pioneers when everything looks like a war zone, more or less, in the spring when the snow goes, and woof, this strong flower sprouts. And then they thought, well, if you're tired and you feel like the surroundings,
Ja.
then maybe you can take a little bit of tea of this flower and feel more alert, energized. And it's also a social herb. If you look, it grows in families, basically, so in clusters. And what to use is the flower, and later on the leaves, which will be these tiny ones, but they will grow, and also the root. And what you do is teas, tinctures, and tobacco. So this is, I had to draw this picture because I didn't have one. It is, this thing is a wooden box with the dry Tussilago herbs in, and it's usually made of pine or birch, which is two other magical trees with antioxidants and stuff. And it's good for as to store herbs during the winter. This is the lid, the top, and here you have a pipe. So teas can be smoked as well. And here also is the idea of correspondence between, if you have problem with the breathing, asthma even, or stuff like that, the idea was to smoke, because that is straight to the lungs, the breathing. And it's also calming you down. We know that asthma is also driven by the nervous system. If you're stressed, the asthma will be worse. If you can calm your breathing down, it will loosen up a little bit. So there's there are, say, pseudoscience, but a bit of science connected to the idea of correspondence. But today we are usually not recommending smoking stuff, basically. But this is now my mother's childhood, which is many, many years ago. So here you have the ideas to, when a child get influenza, it's really, we know they are vulnerable, and vaccines wasn't really everywhere to find. So how do you keep kids and people alive in this tough environment where there is so long way to the doctor, and it snows, and its roads are not really functioning? You need to do something. And this is the environment pushing up solutions, coping strategies. So, and to get a child to drink a tea which can taste like bitter and, you know, not good, can be like a fight you will not win. So they put a pipe in the hands and the mouth of small kids to play adults smoking, because my grandfather was a smoker, and as you saw, Vagina-pekka, and not always tobacco, because tobacco was very hard to find. It was expensive, exclusive, but herbs, basically, for health reasons. That's why I also put this disclaimer, don't try this at home, just in case. But this was how it was done before we had, you know, these warnings and stuff that smoking kills. The other herb I want to talk about is this one, also a picture from outside my window, also an early pioneer that saves insects and the whole ecosystem. And it's goat willow, salix, and it's rich in aspirin and antioxidants. It has strong anti-inflammatory agents. Also, the tussilago got the same, but this is more for the headache. And as you all know, when you get the flu, you feel really fuzzy in the head, and maybe you get a bad headache, and the whole body feels achy and hot and feverish, and everything is off with the body, stiffness in joints and everything. So here you have the other savior, early spring savior, which is the salix. And usually it's the inner bark or skin of the shrubs or trees. It can also become a tree, but it's usually shrubs. And it's also really good for disinfectants, for wounds. It's antibacterial, and it was used for the animals a lot. When you run out about this time, the hay you gathered in the summer, you might start to run out of food for fodder for the animals. And the animals usually are goats, small goats, and cows, maybe 1 or 2 cows in the small households. And how to keep them alive? Well, this is the savior. And it's also very, if you look at the picture, it's also kind of fluffy and a little bit happy. So it's also, people get spring depressions, as we know. And it's kind of, in a way, uplifting. That is the folkloristic idea about this one and the tussilago. It's uplifting on the mood. So it's also something that is, for the Sámi people and also the Lantalaiset tornedalians, we sleep or we use the lavvo or the tipi, the tent, or a peat lavvo, basically. It's a gammi, which is more a stationary one that is built. And every spring we throw out the old shrubs from the willow and put new in. And they're also the best thing to sleep on. I wish everyone could try. They are amazing. And it's like we put like a meter or so, because it will shrink by the autumn. It will be quite maybe a decimeter. But it's amazing to sleep on. And it's great animal fodder. It also gives to the goats and the cow, when they eat it, the milk becomes stronger for humans to consume, and cheese. And here we have the consumers also, the reindeers, for example, and a lot of horned animals are very fond of salix specifically. And I thought, well, maybe they get a lot of headaches because these are small horns, but they grow them gigantic by the autumn. And they are very, very much into salix. So maybe they cure themselves. They are smart, the animals. And they're also great landscapers, because if we didn't have these amazing animals, the landscape would be even more shrubby, as you see here. But these landscapers keep it in check and balance. And here you see also that by the roadsides, there's a lot of good herbs. And in the ditches, you have a lot of water. So it's good to find herbs by the roads, maybe not so trafficked roads because of the pollution. But anyways, it's interesting to look at. This is the house where my mother smoked the pipe as a toddler. So you can imagine very small kids smoking pipes for flu symptoms. Here, it's way easier than to get them drink. And the adults, actually, the grown-ups had it in tea form. So it's a little bit a paradox. Let's see what we had. Yeah, and here is another one. There's a lot of good information on the internet to find about these herbs, and I encourage you to look for it, especially because both of these herbs are so common across the globe. And why don't you start to use them? You as the collective, whoever listens and look at this, because when you form a relationship to your place and you become the steward and the caretaker, the nature will communicate back to you. And what is very interesting that we are looking for, and as a healer, what plants are coming towards houses where people live? Because nature wants to support and it wants to heal, because we are part of the nature. So for me, for example, I have these tussilago outside my window for a reason. I have a little bit weak lungs because I took the what do you call, the glands in the throat. What's the name of the glands in the throat? Maybe not someone knows. This immunity thing is that you have when you have a sore throat. You can also gurgle the tea infusions from the tussilago and the salix if you have a sore throat. It's also very good for that because both are antibacterial. And you see, I just took a excerpt of the thing, and it's hard to see because this is the color that it showed itself. But anyways, so what you can see is tussilago is a fairly new study. And it's good for, well, when you feel also the stitches in the heart, sudden stitches in the heart, then you also can take tussilago. And it's antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, anti-diabetic, that I don't know that much, anti-cancer. Well, this is a lot of, it's in vitro. It's an in vitro study, but it's interesting. And together with this ethno kind of thing, it's interesting as a storytelling as well, and old knowledge. And here we have also the salix, and you can find it even in the north of Africa. And this is the same usage. That's very interesting because the Samis and let's say the Moroccans has I dare to say a very long time ago, a couple of 25,000 years ago or whatever, had some kind of connection, maybe, but the usage is identical. So that is interesting. The communication between man, human, and nature is the same. How did we understood nature from the start? How to use these herbs? That's interesting. It's I think by meditation. Okay, how am I with time, John?
That's about the end of the time we have for you, Asa, but we have lots of time for questions and answers at the end of the session, and we already have a few in the chat. So yeah, thank you very, very much for a beautiful and inspiring and very personal presentation on coltsfoot and willow. So yeah, much appreciated, Asa. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, you're welcome. Let's stop. Where is the thingy? Stop share. Right. So,
okay.
Am I out of the
yes,
the
you're
zone?
back. Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank
you.
again. Thanks again, Asa. And so with that, I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Martyna Vengrytė. And
yes,
Martyna is here.
Yes.
Welcome, Martyna. Thank you for joining us. Martyna will speak about the medicinal potential of Labrador tea in the Northern Hemisphere, and she will speak about her collaborative work with her fellow researcher, Lina Rodoni, whose bio I will add to the chat. But to introduce Martyna, she's a second-year PhD student at the Lithuanian University of Health Sciences, and her PhD thesis focuses on the biological activity and phytochemistry of plants in the rhododendron genus Ledum subsection. So she's focusing her research on this very species. So it's a pleasure to have you, Martyna, and please begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much, John. So I would like to share my, I'm sorry, okay, we will try. 1 second, I'm
Sure.
having a little bit of Zoom problems.
Take your time, it's no problem, no problem.
Okay. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, John. So, hello, I'm Martyna Vengrytė. I'm second-year PhD student from Lithuanian University of Health Sciences. And today, with Professor Lina Rodoni, we prepared you a presentation exploring the medicinal potential of Labrador tea in the Northern Hemisphere. So, Rhododendron subsection Ledum is a taxonomic subdivision that includes several species of evergreen shrubs and small trees. These plants belong to the family of Ericaceae. Plants of the genus Ledum were assigned to this section of the genus Rhododendron in 1990. Previously, Ledum species are now accepted as Rhododendron tomentosum hermaia, Rhododendron grenlandicum cron edchet, and Rhododendron columbianum hermaia, piper hermaia. However, recently there are more accepted Ledum species, such as not only 3 ones I just presented you, also Rhododendron hippolacum, Rhododendron diversipilosum, Rhododendron subulatum, and the last one, Rhododendron tolmachevi. Our research is made about Tomentosum grenlandicum and columbianum because at the moment we know just 3 of those species, but now on we will like to make our research more widely with all of those. So we found my presentation will be about the first 2 because Tomentosum has some information about it in the internet and the researches and study data. Grenlandicum has just a little, and there's no information about Columbianum, so it's really interesting for us in the future. All of these plants are known for their distinct morphological characteristics, such as small leaves and bell-shaped flowers, and they typically thrive in the acidic soil habitats. The taxonomy of Rhododendron subsection Ledum remains unclear, with the old and new names still in use interchangeably. So there is like a big challenge for those who wants to make some studies about these plants, because since their reclassification in 1990, many studies continue to refer to Rhododendron tomentosum as Ledum palustre, Rhododendron grenlandicum as Ledum latifolium or Ledum grenlandicum, and Rhododendron columbianum as Ledum glandulosum or Ledum neoglandulosum. The common names, such as Labrador tea, wild rosemary, and marsh tea, only adds up to the big confusion, as the name, for example, Labrador tea is used for all species altogether, with a slight variation distinguishing them in some studies. Some specific names would be like for Rhododendron tomentosum, it would be called for Northern Labrador tea, Rhododendron grenlandicum like bog Labrador tea, and Rhododendron columbianum as Western Labrador tea. So as we see, a lot of teas here, and it's just big challenge for those who wants to explore those species, because there are a lot of studies and the names are to know which name is which is like similar to unraveling the big spider web. Talking about geographic distribution, these plants grow in wetlands, bogs, and tundrous ecosystem adapted to cold climates in North America, Europe, and parts of Asia. For example, Rhododendron tomentosum grows in Europe, Asia, and North America, so we can find this plant in our area, as Rhododendron groenlandicum only grows in North America, Greenland, and Rhododendron columbianum in Western USA and Canada. Traditional uses. Traditionally, as the raw material of Rhododendron tomentosum, because it has a lot of data about the traditional use, was used as leaves or small branches, and the ethnopharmacological uses vary according to region. Plants' raw material was most often prepared as infusion and decoction. So traditional uses from the regions, North Europe, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Estonia, we found that leaves were used against lice, fleas, and bedbugs as a repellent for cold whooping cough, bronchitis, tuberculosis, sore throat, rheumatism, arthrosis, high blood pressure, and sometimes for skin diseases. In the China, specifically Tibet, leaves were used to reduce infection and inflammation. Decoction was used to treat tuberculosis, bronchitis, jaundice, and other leaf diseases. Gynecological diseases was treated with herbal baths, and diarrhea with herbal ashes. In the South Korea, plant leaves were used to treat gynecological disorders. And in Russia, leaves infusion was used to treat pulmonary diseases, decoction used to treat arthritis, gynecological diseases, gastritis. Ointment was used to treat the skin and ophthalmic diseases such as blepharitis. Rhinitis was used to treat with the drops, and hypnotic or sedative effect was reached by smoking herbal leaves. So it's similar to the presentation we just heard by Asa. And the phytochemical composition of this plant is wide because it contains essential oils, terpenic compounds, coumarins, flavonoids, phenolic acids, and in some cases, minerals. So flavonoids and phenolic acids in Rhododendron tomentosum primarily consist of flavonol glycosides such as quercetin, isoquercetin, hyperazidrotin, quercetin, myricetin derivatives, catechin, epicatechin, and B-type or protoanthocyanins forms second most abundant fraction, and composition also contains phenolic acids such as chlorogenic or caffeic acids. In Rhododendron groenlandicum, phenolic fraction with adipogenic activity includes catechin, chlorogenic acids, epicatechin, quercetin glycosides, and quercetin itself. Researchers show that seasonal variation affects phenolic compounds levels with the highest amount at the end of vegetation period. The terpenic compounds found in the leading species, Rhododendron tomentosum and groenlandicum, includes ursolic acid, uvaol, and uvaol acetate. The leaves of Rhododendron tomentosum found in China contain ledumone, uvaol, lepenon, alpha-amirin, ursolic acid, lupeolol, and alpha-amirin, and some other ones. And for the other compounds, Rhododendron tomentosum, there are researches that they contain some coumarins such as fraxitin, fraxin, or esquilin. And in Rhododendron groenlandicum, there was a research that they found the mineral compositions such as manganese, aluminum, ferrum, copper, nickel, and some traces of silver. Essential oils. So we highlighted 4 studies for you that shows Rhododendron tomentosum essential oil composition, just to see how different it is in different countries and how many henotypes we have. So Lithuanian study by Judzentienė was they found in Rhododendron tomentosum seeds, leaves, and shoots that they contained 47 different essential oil compounds such as polystrol, ledol, myrcen, limonen, and seeds have more polysterol than ladle, and while shoots have more ladle than polysterol. So that was a little interesting conclusion here. In the Estonian study by Raal, they found 72 essential oil compounds by using gas chromatography mass spectrophotometry. 2 hemotypes were identified by them. One was rich in polysterol and ladle. Another one was containing more gamma terpenol and PCMN. Finnish study by Karppinen in 2021 found polysterol, ladle, and beta-myrcen as the principal compounds in stem and leaves, and they made like a conclusion that plants in Central and Northern Europe belongs to the polysterol ladle hemotype. But Polish study in 2020 by Benelli found PCMN isoascorbyl hemotype containing isoascorbyl and PCMN like for the dominant compounds. So we see very, very different essential oil compositions in the same plants as the different hemotypes around Europe, Northern Europe. So biological activity and potential therapeutical effect. They exhibit antioxidant properties, reducing oxidative stress, anti-inflammatory effects, reaches by modulating pro-inflammatory pathways, antimicrobial activity was found against pathogens. And the potential medicinal application explores anti-tumor, hepatoprotective, neuroprotective, and cardioprotective effects, antioxidant benefits in preventing cardiovascular diseases, neurodegenerations, and cancer, gastrointestinal and homeopathic system protection effects were found, as well as potential anti-arthritis and anti-proliferative activity for rheumatoid arthritis. And there were some studies for Rhododendron groenlandicum for having anti-diabetic potentials in traditional green medicine. So as we see, potential medicine application is really similar to the traditional application were used in the past. If we going deeper into biological activities, antioxidant property effect is primarily due to flavonoids and phenolic acids. These compounds neutralize free radicals, inhibits oxidative damage, and enhance antioxidant enzyme activity. Anti-inflammatory properties are reached by flavonoids and terpenoids, inhibiting pro-inflammatory cytokines. And Rhododendron tomentosum extract show moderate inhibition of prostaglandin biosynthesis and path-induced exoticin. 2 quercetin glycosides for Rhododendron tomentosum demonstrated cytotoxic effects against mouth epidermal carcinoma. And we going to the anti-cancer properties. Flavonoids and phenyl acids may induce apoptosis in cancer cells, inhibits proliferation, and prevent angiogenesis. In vitro and in vivo studies support potential anti-cancer effect as well. As I said, there were anti-diabetic properties for Rhododendron groenlandicum. This extract stimulated adipose similar to the anti-diabetic drug rosiglitazone, and antimicrobial and antiviral properties were discovered in Rhododendron tomentosum. It shows that they have effective against fungi and bacteria, and essential oils shows insecticidal effect, and so on. And there are a little bit of information about the toxicity. So like the most toxic compound which ERA considers for Rhododendron tomentosum is ladle. And there was a study with the hemotype which have ladle, and they made the study with essential oils from inflorescence and shoots tested on brine shrimp larvae. Although the toxicity of Rhododendron groenlandicum shows that this one is less toxic due to the lower and no ladle content in essential oil. Another probably toxic compound which could be in Rhododendron species because they sometimes contains their leaves will be granulotoxin first. Although there are unclear toxicity in these Lidum species because only one 19th century study suggests lacks of granutoxin in Rhododendron tomentosum, and there are no data available of granutoxins in Groenlandicum or on Columbianum species. So why we choose these plants as research objects? First of all, they are evergreen plants. They are good in the industrial point of view, a lack of research data, and phytotherapeutical potential. And I will fastly show you our initial research results in the terpenic compounds. So we were using ultra performance liquid chromatography and identified 7 terpenic compounds in Rhododendron tomentosum extract, such as ursolic and olenolic acid, being the most abundant. As you see, there are like 7 picks. We identify. There are a lot more, but we didn't identify till now. Another terpenic compound study made with gas chromatography mass spectrophotometry analysis, and we performed it with Rhododendron tomentosum extract and identified 28 different compounds. These compounds, the compounds found with the most abundant ones being sitosterol, alpha-amberine lupyl concylate, and ursolic acid. Phenol compounds analysis was made with the high-performance liquid chromatography. We identified phenolic compounds at the wavelength of 360 nanometers, with avocalorin and hyperis being the most abundant ones, and at the wavelength of 280 nanometers with HPLC method, we identified 7 compounds. Dominant compounds in terms of their amounts were chlorogenic and non-chlorogenic acids. Initial research results on essential oils. So, as I told you previously, there were 4 different studies on Rhododendron tomentosum all over Europe, and our analysis showed that we identified 54 compounds in our Dubrava Marsh Reserve Rhododendron tomentosum sample, which is located in Kaunas district, Lithuania. And our hemotype was containing the prevalent ones, compounds as alpha-terpinyl acetate, isoascaridol, and PCMM. So as we see, there is no trace of Lidl and pyrostrol found in our region hemotype, which was really interesting case. And after this essential oil distillation, we thought with professor that maybe we should research decoction which was left after distillation, that maybe it could be useful for us. So using high performance liquid chromatography, we identified 3 phenolic compounds in the wavelength of 360 and 5 in the 280 nanometers, comparing to the Rhododendron tomentosum extract, which I showed you previously. The decoction contained more protein in B2. So this is only proven that this decoction was useful, and we wanted to test the essential oils residue in this decoction. And as you see this chromatogram of this analysis, there were no essential oils detected in decoction left and this after distillation process. Our further research plans, we planning to perform complete analysis of triterpene phenolic compounds in order to identify all known compounds and fully explore phytochemical composition of these plants. We would like to examine fully our samples we received so far. Our sample set, they consist of 56 different samples. 20 of them are in the different phenological cycle of this plant, and 20 of them are in the different places in Lithuania. Others are from all over the world, from Canada, from Alaska, from Iceland, from Sweden, Finland, Estonia. So we have a lot of different samples. The only challenge which we are standing is that we got a little less than we thought. Our amounts of these samples are not as big as we thought it will be, so we can't make a distillation of essential oils. So our plan is to perform a complete distillation plan of all the samples. It's in the near future. And after everything, we would like to conduct biological activity of studies. So that's it. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions or maybe you have collaboration in mind from the samples or something, please contact me, and this is my email. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Martyna, for introducing us to such a fascinating species, really global in its distribution. And it's interesting that even some of the responses that we've had to this seminar in their communication with us, they mentioned that they're interested in how the species can be medicinal because they regard it as toxic. So that's something we might discuss more in the Q&A.
Yeah.
And so thanks so much. And it really shows us how scientific research and ethnobotanical or traditional cultural knowledge of plants might work in collaboration. So we really appreciate your contribution today, Martyna, and we'll have more time during the Q&A to learn about
Thank you, John.
Labrador tea. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. So let's move now to our third speaker, and I'm very pleased to introduce Katja Misikanga, who will speak about Arctic herbs for health and well-being. Katja is founder and CEO of Arctic Warriors, based in Rovaniemi, Lapland, Finland. She is a fourth-generation healer and herbalist raised in the Arctic wilderness and deeply rooted in Finnish Lapland above the Arctic Circle. Knowledge of herbs and folk medicine runs in her family, and she's been involved in the development of the natural products industry since young adulthood, working as a product developer, a trainer, and lecturer. And her favorite herb, I'm happy to hear, is Angelica archangelica, which is very well known for keeping the flu away during those harsh Lapland winters. So thank you, Katja, for joining us. Happy to have you here today.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay, and now I try to share my.
Please.
If I.
Yes, there you go.
I
Beautiful.
manage, yeah, I just put it to whole screen. Okay, so you can see my presentation now.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so hello, my name is Katja Misikanga, and yes, I'm a founder and CEO of Arctic Warriors. And I'm from Lapland, Finland, where only the strongest survive, as you can see. And yeah, this nettle doesn't care if meter of snow falls on it. It keeps growing. Yeah, so, well, first a little bit about my background. The knowledge of the Arctic herbs runs in my family. My great-grandfather was a famous healer in Lapland, and people traveled far away to visit him. And also my mother, she's in the picture, also ran her own business before retiring. Well, I can't keep her away from the fields, even then she is over 70 years old now, but, but she's a power woman. So my knowledge of the Lapis herbs has played a key role also in making the Arctic Warriors my company. The superfood boom started about 15 years ago, or over 50 years ago. And I noticed that they bring all kind of stuff to Finland from other countries. And people were really excited about them. But when you know what kind of treasures your nature is full of, and nobody talked about that, I got even a little bit angry. So I decided that I have to do something, because the direction could be other ways around. And then Arctic Warriors was born. And do you want to hear the story behind the name of the company? It came from the thought that Arctic herbs and berries can kick southern superfoods' ass because they are so much stronger and effective. That's the story. So yeah, we are near to Rovaniemi in a little village called Narkaus, and we have been operating since 2014 and combining scientific research with a generation of traditional knowledge. But why are Lapis herbs so unique and effective? Well, first, our harsh, dark Arctic winters put the plants to the ultimate test. We have lots of snow and cold when only the strongest survive. And when the summer arrives, well, what plants do when the sun is shining? They are working, of course. And in Lapland, sun is shining 24 hours per day. So under the midnight sun, they photosynthesize 24 hours a day. So basically working the whole day and night. So they have to be very strong to survive. And that's why they develop strong ingredients, what are also good for us when we eat those plants and berries. And there's many studies comparing the strengths of northern herbs to those growing in the south. So this is one of the studies, and this is about the angelica, my favorite herb. And one of the desired effective components are phellandrins. They also cultivate angelica in Hungary, and you can see the red color of the picture, and that is the one what we want this angelica has. So you can see in the picture that the norther you go, the more you find these phellandrins in the angelica. And yeah, we work together, example, with the Natural Research Institute of Finland, who studied this angelica's phellandrin study is, yeah. So a little bit about studies. And okay, this is not a product-based presentation, but just shortly I tell you what kind of products we have now. We have powders made from Lapis herbs and berries, and also strong liquid extracts. You can use our products in yogurts, smoothies, porridges, for baking or for seasoning. And you can also use them as herbal tea or latte drinks. Example, this spruce sprouts powder makes delicious latte drink, what you see in the picture. Oh yeah, and we are launching soon a new capsule series, hopefully in a couple of weeks now, but let's see, little troubles with the labels, as always. Yeah, we have all of our raw material chain in our own hands, and that's how we can guarantee the best quality. Some of the herbs are cultivated by our own contract farmers or in our own farm, and rest of the herbs and berries are collected from the clean Lapis forest by our own collectors. Okay, but now the best part of the presentation, the herbs. And first, a little about roseroot. And roseroot is also one of my favorite herbs. And this picture is from our own farm where we grow roseroot, also angelica, but mostly roseroot. And it was previously protected in Finland, which is why it's also better to cultivate it. And roseroot grows naturally in the Arctic areas and here in Lapland, of course. Despite its name, roseroot, it's not related to rose at all, but belongs to the Crassulaceae family. The name roseroot came from that it grows the large root ball, and when you cut it half, the root smells exactly like a rose, and also taste like rose. Or some say that it tastes like rose perfume. Yeah, and roseroot has an effect on stress, memory, and concentration, for example, but it also has an effect on improving blood circulation. So it's often used by athletes and people who exercise a lot. Yeah, and the root part of the rose root is mainly used for medicinal purposes. It has a especially strong effect on the brain. Surprisingly, when you cut the root in half, it looks just like the brain. Like also said, said also that I think that Mother Earth keeps us human little simple and makes the things so clear that even us simple people understand that, okay, this looks like a brain. Maybe it's very good for your brains. So yeah, it works like that. Like also mentioned. That's so funny. Yeah. We have also studied the green parts of the rose root, and they are very rich of different vitamins. So definitely very good stuff, example in salads or that kind of, or cream powders or something like that. Yeah, roseroot is quite strong in taste, and it affects taste and effects and has drying properties. If you have ever tasted like fresh rose root, it's like it takes the moisture away from your mouth. It's quite a weird experience. It's really trying. So it can be used in teas also, but maybe together with other milder herbs. And well, from our products, people have used roseroot elixirs as a tea booster also. So that's maybe, well, easier way to use roseroot. But yeah, can be used also as a tea. Okay, and next, angelica. This is also one of my favorite herbs. And yeah, and angelica, I have many favorite herbs. And angelica also grows naturally in the Arctic areas. And it is sacred herbs of Sámi people. Yeah, and angelica strengthens the immune system and helps with stomach and intestinal problems. And it is also effective in acute flu and has been studied to even kill Streptococcus bacteria. So very, very, very strong herb. And also if you have the throat ache, you also should use little angelica. Yeah, and angelica is also an herb for lungs, which of course makes sense since so many people find it helpful for the flu symptoms. Yeah, also both the root and the green parts are usable. Again, the root is very strong and more used for medicinal purpose. And do you guess what else angelica affects? Hint in the picture. It's for many men's problem, for example, prostate problems. Yeah, but that was so funny because there's a little man with the weenie. Yeah. The taste of the angelica is maybe even stronger than roseroot, the root part especially. If you use the root in tea, be careful not to make too strong because it's quite, the taste is really strong. Yeah. And but you can also use the green parts, and maybe in tea the green parts might be better because they are not so strong taste. Yeah, and from our products also people use angelica elixirs as a tea booster. Okay, and yeah, when I talk about herbs, I always talk about nettle. Even it's very common and grows almost everywhere. And this picture, you see one of our contract farmers, Elina, and her first bench of nettle. And she hates that I show this picture for everybody because the line is so curvy over there, and she thinks that doesn't look professional at all. But this, I think this is so funny and cute picture, and I like the vibes because this was the first bench of nettle, and we also study new ways to cultivate wild herbs. And well, the nettle is one what we have been studied a lot. It's not so easy to cultivate nettle. it's like it grows everywhere, but when you put it on the field and try to cultivate it, it's problems after problems. So it's quite interesting herb. Yeah. And the reason why I always want to bring up nettle is because it's one of the most nutrient-dense plant on the planet. It has almost everything a person needs. So nettle is really good way to boost everyday food to be more nutritious. And well, it's also strong with antioxidant and protects cells from free radicals. Well, nettle is one of the best tea herb, and it's really suitable as a base plant for herbal mixtures. And I always tell people who do not use herbs to try at least nettle, because yeah, it has everything, almost everything. So if you don't use any herbs, use nettle. Okay, and the last one is spruce sprouts. And spruce sprouts are the new growth of the spruce tree at the beginning of the summer. The branch grows a delicious and slightly citrus flavor little sprouts at the end of the branch, like you see in the picture. And we use freeze drying to dry spruce sprouts because its aromas and vitamins are lost very easily. So in our studies, this freeze drying technique has been the best for spruce sprouts. Spruce sprouts contains especially a lot of vitamin C and vitamin K. And it also contains resinous substances that helps with inflammation and, for example, flu symptoms. In the old days, it was widely used to treat cold and coughs. I also think that it's really good as a vitamin booster. And spruce sprouts can be used in a tea also, and it adds a wonderful citrus kind of flavor. It's really fresh flavor. And in this picture, you see our employees cleaning and packing spruce sprouts when we collected them from the forests. Yeah, so my message is that if you want the strongest herbs on the earth that grows under the northern lights, then come and collect them from Lapland. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katja, for a fascinating presentation and a real delight for plant lovers to see all of those herbs, the richness and beauty and vitality of all the herbs that you've shown. And it's something I hadn't really thought of before, that the northern climate creates these strong vital properties of plants because of the conditions of light and so forth. So really appreciate your talk today. So thank you.
Thank you.
So we have plenty of time now for some questions and interactions with our audience members. And I'd just like to get the question and answer period going with a question for all of you, for all three presenters. And it's really about the changing conditions in northern regions, right? The impacts of climate change are causing, say, plant cycles to change. Flowering may be delayed, or it may be early. There are lots of changes that are happening to wild plants in the north because of climate. And so I wanted to ask you what sorts of challenges you might encounter working with wild plants in particular, so non-cultivated plants in particular. So that's maybe the first part of the question. And then the second part is, what are some strategies that can be used to preserve traditional knowledge of plants in northern climates, where Asa beautifully showed how so many factors might impinge on those traditional knowledge systems. So what are some ways to preserve those traditional knowledge systems in the north? So yeah, anyone who would like to respond to either one of those two, I'd be very happy to hear from you. Yeah. Asa, perhaps if you have any ideas first.
Yeah, thank you. Let's say only 10 years ago, zero people were at all interested, I could say, from of this northern knowledge. And especially in Sweden, because we have the problem with racial biology, that my type of people were like the lower class and not smart, and because we had a different language, Sámi and Finnish, and the Swedification, it was the same in Norway, by the way, was really hard, and the language violence. And when language disappears, something really radical happens. Knowledge goes, absolutely. And Also, the industrialization of Sweden had a big impact. But now, all of a sudden, this seminar series is a proof of something is radically shifting and changing to the way better. And we are now, well, we are picking up old knowledge and listening to the elders' stories, and we are looking for clues and ideas in old whatever places, and we are starting to have a conversation with nature and maybe also listen to nature. At the same time, we have this climate change going on, and not only that, but this massive idea of green transition, meaning opening more minds for more consumerism in batteries, which we need a lot of metals for, rare earth metals, and that is a thing that EU and the Swedish, Finnish, and Norwegian states are pushing, and the politics as well. So we are basically they are looking at the North as the universe. It's kind of eternal. There are so much riches but it's not true. Everything is limited, and if you start to destroy the land, then we're in big troubles, I would say. And also, I agree with Katja, because also a few years ago, there was this EDU project in Haparanda. Haparanda is on the border between Sweden and Finland, at the top of the Baltic Sea. And there was this French herb company that wanted to use this strength because of the climate and the midnight sun and the darkness in the winter, to grow classic Mediterranean herbs, because the taste and the medicinal properties in the herbs were like tripled compared to the Mediterranean parts, because they can relax. It's kind of nice. Now it's too warm, but 10 years ago, 20, it was like fairly good. But climate change is absolutely changing everything. And what is a big problem is invasive plants, which are stronger than the local ones. And that is something. And I see it spreads. It's a lot of invasive plants near the airport, near the main roads, because it spreads by these trucks that comes from, I don't know, Hungary, Spain, wherever. Seeds are spreading. And then, so, yeah, and also on the high mountain, where we find angelicas, for example, super, super strong. Now they are also getting shrubbier. So, and the war against basically cultural war against Sámi people and reindeer herding is also a problem, because people don't understand that reindeers are landscapers. If they go, then our mountains will look like, I don't know, shrubby jungles. And that is also a problem. So yeah, it's a lot of things going on simultaneously at the same time. And we need to be the voice of the place, basically, as this initiative, which is absolutely amazing, beautiful, and brilliant.
Thank you, Asa. Yes. Katja, any thoughts on that? Some of the challenges of working with wild species?
Yeah. Actually, also already told lots of things what I was thinking, but I have to say that the climate change also is very dangerous, because now our herbs doesn't have really this pests problems like insects and that kind of stuff, because the winters are so cold that they don't live here. But if the climate change the weather warmer, when it is changing the weather warmer, the pests problem could be one of the problems what we have with our herbs. And also because our herbs needs also this snow to protect themselves in the winter time. If there's over minus 30 degrees or even 40 degrees in the winter time, and there's no snow at that time, of course the herbs will be frozen, and that's not good. That's why we need that snow in here, because even it's much more warmer now here than 20 years ago, but we still have those high, really cold seasons when the temperature can be like minus 30 or minus 40 or something like that. So we need the snow. But I forgot your question.
Oh, no, that's great. Thank you, Katja. So that's wonderful. Martyna, have you encountered any challenges working with rhododendron species? Environmental challenges, ecological, but also perhaps cultural or community-based challenges?
The biggest challenges were containing the sample, like when we were trying to get more samples, and because of the global warming and everything, this acidic dirt and the marshes are changing, and that was really difficult to find the plants, because we were there was some times when we were going to the exact point which we know that rhododendron tomentosum was growing, and when we came here, we going in the circles and circles and circles, and there were no of those plants, but they were previously they were there, and now it's no. And so that was the biggest challenges for us. And maybe another challenge is that when we took the samples of our plants, we tried to took not as many, not to harm the nature, not to harm we can't take every kind of shoot of the plants, every new shoot of plants, because next year they would not have new shoots, and they don't have flowers and seeds, and it's natural. In nature it's a little bit different than growing plants in your garden and taking care of it by ourselves. So that was our biggest challenges.
Great, thank you, Martyna. Yeah, so it seems like climate is disrupting some of those plant ecologies, the patterns from season to season. So it's something that I think researchers and herbalists will grapple with for years to come. So let's look at the chat. We have a question from Lydia. Does coltsfoot work as a steam infusion? I'll just leave it to anyone to read Asa's detailed answer there about using coltsfoot as a steam infusion. And I'll turn to a question from Pete Yao. And Pete writes, it may interest folk that I have a speculation about rhododendrons. They are known to help with nitrogen cycling, along with their mycorrhizal partners within ecosystems. In the human body, nitrogen apparently helps to buffer pH. As I understand it, rheumatism and other conditions which rhododendrons can treat is associated with excess acidity. And it's interesting that such plants opportunistically thrive in acid habitats. Could they be buffering pH, mitigating excess acidity in both the human body and ecosystems as healing agent of Gaia across scales? So perhaps Martyna has some insight about this connection via acidity. Martyna.
Yes, John. This question, maybe that was a biggest challenge for me, because it's really interesting and has a lot of interesting points. So as we know, rhododendron is like a marsh plant. It likes acidic dirt, but there are like not as much scientific proof and researches to know this could be like a mechanism of its working, and we would like to we are trying to get as much knowledge as we can, and we hope to perform a little bit of knowledge in the future to know these kinds of answers to those questions, because that could be in every other like perspective. There was a question about the cancer treatment, and there was a question about Western medicine treatment, but this plant is it's old, but it's not very, it doesn't have a lot of researches made of it. It doesn't have a lot of proof of the data to know that this is the safe one, and we can use it in some kind of ways, and so we hope we will perform like a little bit of knowledge in the future to know these kinds of questions and the answers to them. Maybe someone has some insights as well in this question. I would like to hear them.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a fascinating connection between sort of planetary ecosystemic health and bodily human health. So something to consider. And it connects to the question from Lydia. Are the plants used in the production of Western medicines as well as traditional medicines, the rhododendron species? And I think you've answered that already, Martyna, that there's a lack of data on their phytochemical composition. So it's really an evolving science, isn't it? The therapeutic applications of Labrador tea.
Yes, it's in the near. I hope it's in the near future.
Yes, great. And if anyone has questions, not in the chat, feel free to just use the hand icon in Zoom. Also a question from Lydia: what's the significance of not finding anything after the decoction? And Martyna's given a very nice detailed answer there that you're welcome to refer to in the chat. So let's see, from Alexis, for Asa, do you dry the coltsfoot flowers or prepare them in a certain way so they do not fluff or seed out? I've tinctured them. Just wondering how you store the flowers for later use, or do you just dry and use the leaves during the fall and winter seasons? Also, perhaps you could give us a little summary of what you've written there already about preparing coltsfoot flowers. You mentioned that they're a social family too, which I find interesting. Yeah, maybe you could elaborate.
Yeah, they are super social. If you, I mean, spring will hit, or has already done that in the southern part. So one can, I think it's good to look or sit by these flowers or plants and understand them on this other level, let's say, the one that we might not think about, the more the energetic level or spiritual level. They are very social, and they come both the tussilago or the coltsfoot and salix or willow comes with hope. In basically when it's like a little bit panicky in the among humans and animals, actually, because the food is getting low, and the strength that we all gathered during the summer and autumn when we fattened up, let's say, and had a lot of food, are like low. So how can we quickly get something to survive? And that is these pioneers, the early spring flowers, and how to collect them. It's maybe, you know, like animals do. When you watch animals, grazing animals, when they graze, they kind of pick a few here and there, and then they move on, and they kind of save the others for next year. And that just imitate that. Don't go the extractive way that you just clean everything out and that's it, because these flowers needs to be allowed to produce seeds and spread around with the wind. So also the willow is the same. How to sit and to be with willow and try to connect with willow. There is a new, by the way, I'm sure you heard about, or maybe read it, John, study about, was it serotonin and oxytocin? These chemicals, we feel good chemicals, that if you hug a tree, there is it's a relationship, and it's translating these feel good chemicals to tree and human. So it's kind of a relationship thing going on. I don't know why I read, but it's kind of super new, the study, and I found that amazing. It's the same with these flowers, and sit with them. You will have these gardeners can, you know, there's a lot of proverbs about having a garden and live a long life. You know, you can be like a wild gardener to take care of the wilderness. And yeah, so the tussilago or the coltsfoot, you can use all parts. It's like with the angelica and the roseroot and all of these that Katja went through. You can use all of the plant, the root, the stem, the stem might be a little bit more richer in irritating agents. So the flower, the leaves comes later, and dry it, but don't be greedy. Let the family have a few members left and for the next season, and help it to spread. No, you can even collect the seeds and plant them at yours. I used to do that. And I also remember the tonsils is the right word of the things. It's fairly common that people who has a lot of these sore throat problems, that they get operations fairly young, and they remove the tonsils. And when you have the tonsils removed, the bacteria will fall down to the lungs. And I very sensitive lungs, so I get a lot of coughs and these things. And I would say I never smoked, though. That's my mother and my grandfather and this Vagina-pekka. But I drank a lot of tea of this coltsfoot, and I found it soothing. Absolutely. Also the idea of it doing that placebo, don't look down on placebo effect. It's a great thing that humans have. No, so I think that might play into it as well, but I feel it's really good one.
So there's something about reciprocity then, taking from but giving back. That's maybe important to this whole relationship between us and medicinal plants. Thanks, Os. And we have a couple hands raised. Francis, please.
Thank you, John. Yeah, thank you, Asa. Thank you, Katja. Thank you, Martyna, for a very interesting and certainly very thoroughly thought-provoking presentations. One of the things that came to mind, Asa, I'll start in connection with what you presented, which was very, very interesting. I've studied the incense burning traditions of the world, and I know that, for instance, burning willow and also perhaps coltsfoot as well has been used to treat sick buildings. Willow particularly is very effective for dealing with grief because it's a plant of the waterways and a feminine plant. The white willow bark is really very important. I think they put it in flower remedies to treat things like anger, resentfulness, bitterness, hatred, grief, all those kind of really difficult emotions. I know certainly in the folklore traditions of Britain, the willow tree is one of the most potent trees for healing. So I tried to somehow connect that with Martyna, what you were saying there about the old Noidi guy, Martyna Pekka, and the smoke in the pipe, in some way, that connection with smoke, you know, sacred smoke. And also for Martyna, I've also read about ledum in incense burning traditions. I think possibly in Tibetan medicine in the Himalayan regions. I think there's a little bit of information there about different uses of it dried, how it's applied in different contexts, but knowing that there's a broad range of different plants, as you mentioned. But I think there is some information there. And then just to Katja, Katja, you said something really profound. You know, we've talked a lot with John and also with Asa about these evolving issues surrounding climate change. But I think those perspectives that you mentioned are missing in these discussions about the cyclical impact on plants and why the winter season is so fundamentally, radically important, and then followed by that light time, that alchemy of the dark and then the light and the warmth and the cold. And for instance, like arnica, the arnica flowers need that high altitude, cold weather in order to grow and develop. And if those winters are going to continue to get warm, then there's going to be like a terrible loss of this fundamentally important plant for the world. And what you mentioned reminded me that some years ago, I think it was around the time of the corona pandemic, that the European Union was trying to do away completely with homeopathy, you know, and anything to do with like herbal medicine. And it just really, what you were saying really affirmed the value that herbal medicine needs to be in these discussions about climate change and about the environmental impacts on ecosystems. I love the picture there of the roseroot, like as a total ecosystem, and then the angelica and the nettle, and why these Arctic landscapes have such amazing values. But it comes down usually to just cutting down trees and deforestation and mining that are seen as the major causes of, like, you know, polluted groundwater, and then loss of regulation of the climate. But then when we drop down into like herbal medicines and herbal products, etc., there's a whole field of research there which is completely underrepresented in these discussions. And I think that's a really great area for certainly for academic discourse. But thank you to everybody. It was really great presentations. And thank you, John, for hosting.
Well, thanks, Francis, for those comments. Any responses from our panelists?
I can comment. Francis is always so thoughtful and brilliant when he's saying something. Yeah, about the incense thingies and pipe smoking. I think you're definitely onto something. And remember, I told you about this legendary Martyna, that he was called to houses where a person died, you know, and that's grief. And he kind of cleansed the house from this clingy heaviness that appears, of course, when we are grieving, and maybe also other heavy emotions. And these, well, I call them pioneers because they are so early, as you also mentioned, that they do bring hope to us when it's kind of it can be heavy during the springs, you know, not only the food sources are low, but in general, spring, we should be happy. But, you know, there's a lot of these heavy senses when we have this season shifting. So yeah, I 100% agree with you, Francis, about that comment. It was brilliant. Thank you. Made my presentation way better, I have to say. Thanks.
Great. So we have another hand raised, Alexis Burnett. Alexis, feel free to ask your question.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciated the presentations today. I've been listening as I was looking after my kids a little bit here too. But thank you very much. And thank you, Asia, for the response to my question. And I appreciate you talking about reciprocity and the caretaker's way with the plants and the coltsfoot. And in particular, I guess what I was thinking with my question wasn't to have them not flower, but just I've found sometimes when you harvest flowers such as coltsfoot or goldenrod, sometimes they just, when you dry them, they just fluff out. And I find that they're maybe not as medicinally active at that stage when they're dried. So I've often just used the leaves of coltsfoot in for cough medicines and things like that in the winter season. A lot of the flowers I'll tend to I sometimes put them into honey early in the spring. So I'm in Canada here, in Turtle Island or in North America. And it was beautiful to hear all the presentations today, and many of these species grow here in North America as well, in the north. So we use the Labrador tea and the nettles. The coltsfoot isn't native here, but it is here, and it's one of our first spring wildflowers that come up. And yeah, there was some of the other plants that people mentioned as well. So it was a pleasure to hear about them. And the willow, you know, there's a lot of indigenous use of all these plants, especially the ones that are native here. And one thing I find interesting about the Labrador tea that I was going to mention is there was a study, and some of my indigenous friends who told me that the hummingbirds will sometimes take the tiny little hairs that grow on the undersides of the Labrador tea, and they'll line their nests, and their nests are just the size of a golf ball, and they'll line their nests with the hairs from underneath the Labrador tea. And when they did some studies, they found that the hummingbirds that had their nests lined with those little hairs didn't have issues with mites, because of those antimicrobial, antibacterial properties of the Labrador tea. And I remember in one of the presentations, they listed that. So it just reminded me of that, and just a way that we can learn through watching the animals and watching the birds and what they do. So I thought that was cool. I don't know if people have seen hummingbird nests, but they're pretty amazing to see. But thank you. It was great presentations today, and it was nice to hear a perspective from overseas, from a different place than where I live, but things that are used in such similar ways all over the world. And I think it's a beautiful thing how plants can connect us, and they can heal us, and we can learn to be better stewards and caretakers of the land. So perhaps that was more of a comment than a question, but I just wanted to say Chimigwech, or thank you for sharing. And I'm glad that I heard about this and was able to take part today. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks so much, Alexis, for your comments. And it is amazing how plants can connect us across these great distances, right? So that in Turtle Island and in Lapland, we can kind of visualize a certain species and our connection to it, and that it collapses those distances between us. So thanks so much.
I have a little bit of a comment on the hummingbird situation. We are doing the same thing, though we do not have these amazing birds here. But if you remember, I told you that we take shrubs of the willow, and every spring we fill the floor of the teepee, we call it lavvo, or gammi. Gammi is more of this round shaped peat thingies that we have, more stationary, but the lavvo is something we move with. And that is the same. You keep out, when many people sleeps like a family, and if there is something, bugs or something going on, because of the willow's antibacterial properties, they will not survive that well. So it is also a medicinal thing going on with using that as a mattress on the floor. So it's I feel connected with the hummingbird of your place there. So we do the same basically.
That's great. Thank you, Asa. Yeah. We've got some great questions and great answers in the chat. I'll just run through some of the topics. The disappearance of language and how this connects to biodiversity and traditional plant knowledge, very important. And Asa has a wonderful response there that I recommend you read. There's a question for Asa that hasn't been answered yet. And dear Asa, this is from Saranth. Are there efforts we could support that will encourage, support ethnobotany work you and others are engaged in?
Of course, I'm also a researcher and I write a bit, and I'm not alone. We are a few here. How to support? It's difficult to find fundings for these things. Also, to study wild herbs, because of they will not be patented. So there's no money-making things in this. It's more like, support. How can you support? This, John and Francis, your thing you're doing here is, I feel less alone. I feel supported, actually. And I feel I'm kind of getting more rebellious by every of these things, because people, you are interested. I mean, that's amazing. I get also sent messages from Hawaii. It's that is also amazing to be connected. I think that is the way to operate as a willow or a coltsfoot. Have these social families and network, because we're becoming stronger. We learn from nature. That's the thing. And this is a very organic, let's say, creation that you created, Francis and John. I think it's this is good. Support, yeah. I think to feel less lonely, because sometimes I do feel lonely, and then I said, fuck this. But then I'm at it again. I go and cry somewhere because there is another loss to these mining companies. Basically, a lot of Canadians, Australians, and Brits coming here. Aside the Chinese are doing the windmill things, also drying out land and turning everything to a concrete madness of huge wind mills. And then we have these mining companies. So yeah, to somehow form networks and support by that's good. That's bringing also hope, I would say. And I saw something about how do you sit with a plant? Well, just sit down and be quiet and imagine you lower your barriers, because we have a lot of bullshit barriers going on. In order to survive in this world, basically, with stress and people. And so just imagine you lower any kind of barriers that you don't think this is true. If you start to hear maybe an inspirational voice or something, that's nature. I would do that. Just still yourself, sit down, lower your barriers and wait, because the voice of nature needs time. We are too fast and stressy. And if you sit with a stone, for example, it takes even more time. But yeah. Or get organized. Don't cry. I cry anyways, but I'm trying to get organized and connect with others and feel connections and move on, work, spread the word, that sort.
Thank you for the words of inspiration, Asa. Very important to the social networks that surround plant life and herbal plants. A question from Tanmoy in West Bengal. Welcome, Tanmoy. for Katja, who's already responded there, but it's an interesting issue, say with nettle, how it's associated with being irritated, being stung, being annoyed. Is there something about transforming social perceptions of a plant that's important before its real medicinal potential can be actualized in society? I mean, people have to get past these certain views of plants that may be considered annoying. So, Katja, I don't know if you have any more comments in this area.
Yes,
We'd love to hear that.
This is my favorite topic because yeah, I think also that people thinks that nettle is a weed what you have to get rid of. If you buy a cottage somewhere or a house somewhere, if there grows nettle, you have to get rid of. Oh my God, horrible nettle. And mostly because it's stinging. And of course, if you have children, you don't like that kind of plants to grow in your yard or something like that. But people don't realize that yeah, my opinion is that nettle is one of our like like best herb in the world. Of course, there's this special function with angelica or roseroot, but nettle is like everything, like base what you need for your body. So that's one thing why I like to talk about nettle and tell people that don't okay, you can cut some of the nettles from your yard if you have children, but don't cut it all. Don't get rid of it like totally, and collect them and use them.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Katja. Yes. We have time for a few more questions from the chat. Some of them have been answered already. I encourage you to have a look. And I'll turn to Pete's question about how plants appear where they're needed. So given the biocultural challenge of climate change and some of the warming locked in, is there a willingness to explore the healing benefits of novel or exotic pioneer plants in your areas or ecosystems, in the sense of coming into relationship with rather than wishing them away, and also the compelling idea that all plants appear where they're needed? I think that connects to what you just said, Katja, about this perception of certain species as weeds that might deter from people taking an interest in their medicinal attributes. And I wonder if that's something else, these sort of new pioneer species that may come into certain areas as climate change. Are those certain species that you've engaged with and been able to incorporate into your healing practices? Because some of these processes have been going on for hundreds of years, though, if we think of nettle and other weed species. So just something to think about there. Some quote, a comment from Saranth, connecting with folks. That sounds delightful. And if anyone would like to leave their email in the chat, feel free to do so and connect to each other that way. We're trying to do that via the Sentient Forest project, but it's always something that we can improve. So yeah, Asa's replied. So yeah, I think we covered most of our questions in the chat. Really great to see all the interesting questions and responses. And I think it's time to bring the session to a close, but it's been such a wonderful session, so many different and complementary perspectives working together. And just to think of a plant like Labrador tea, right, that where this vast potential for research, for products, and for identifying some of those medicinal attributes that Labrador tea has. That's a great example of sort of maybe even a renaissance of thinking and engaging with plants, and especially medicinal plants that we find ourselves in at the moment. So in closing, I'd just like to mention a few events to come.
John, can I answer a question?
Oh, yes, please.
There is a question from Thomas. If I could link the study that I mentioned about the relationship and connections with plants and oxytocin and serotonin. I'm writing a piece about rowan trees, as you know, John, and things. So I found it there, but I don't have it here. So maybe I can send it to you, and you can put it out somehow. I need to look for it, actually. I just read it super briefly yesterday, actually. So I have, but it was so interesting, because we know that pets can do that. For example, a dog, a cat, interact, horse, but also now plants and trees in specific. So that was the thing. I will look for it, and I send it to John, and John sort it out.
Sounds good.
Kind of.
That's
somehow.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's try to publish your paper on rowan too. That may be
and relationship and
great
it's
way
more
to
of a,
get
it's more
the
of a
ideas out.
shamanic noita way of doing this thing to understand that basically what we talked about. A lot of those things.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Asa. Yeah, that's what it's all about, sharing this knowledge. And that's really the aim of these seminars. And I just want to flag that this is Plant Perspectives, the journal that I edit, which is open access. And this is a journal that is trying to bring some of the ideas we discussed today into a published form that can be shared globally without any barriers to access. And so Plant Perspective, Whitehorse Press publishes the journal, and Whitehorse Press is engaged in a funding campaign at the moment to ensure that Plant Perspectives can remain open access. So if you are part of an institution, for example, like a university library or something of that nature, a research institution, you can request that the institution supports the journal so that it can remain open access. And I'll paste the funding call. I sent that through the emails, but perhaps James, I believe, who's in our audience, James Rice, if you could just paste the link to the donation page on the Whitehorse Press website, that would be wonderful. So Plant Perspectives, a great journal to keep in mind for learning, but also for publishing if you have content on plant life that you'd like to publish. And it can be research-based articles, but it can also be more narrative, exploratory essays, poetry, visual art, and other forms. And I'd also like to mention to you that in northern Finland, in Rovaniemi, if you are fortunate enough to be in Rovaniemi this summer, it's a wonderful, wonderful part of the world, really, and very special within Finland. If you do find yourself in Rovaniemi this summer, please come to the exhibition of our project, Gifts from the Sentient Forest, beginning on June 10th and running through the 1st of August. And I'd just like to give you a sample of some of the beautiful artwork and all kinds of wonderful work, really, from performance to video to illustrations and drawings, site-based work, photography, some illustrations by Satu Keliokusi on the stumps, what she calls Stump Shaman series, a wonderful take. And Zoe Koivu's work, who's here in our audience today, a series called Plurality, using really interesting iPhone photography techniques to capture these just tremendous images of different species. And some beautiful work by Amelia Lane, some sort of daguerreotype style, old types of photographic imaging to capture just the aura of the tree, which is stunning and captivating. Some work by Simon Lee on scent and plants, performance by Dagmara Maslowska, on-site performance called Among Mothers, some chants written by and spells written by Hekla, who is based in northern Finland, and Mikita Peregrine, a biologist, a botanist, who's contributed some work on iNaturalist to the exhibitions, so bringing the scientific element to our exhibition. More performance by Julia, wonderful to see. Some beautiful writing for children by Lydia, who is in our audience today, accompanied by illustrations such as these, and look out for her book called The Phoenix, the Selkie, and the Stoat. Some beautiful work with seeds becoming art, collections becoming art, and beautiful songs by Mira Sunari. So really a diverse collection of work. There will be an online version, but of course, if you can make it to the physical exhibition, I think you'll be blown away because it also connects so closely to some of the topics we addressed today. All right, so with that, I'd like to close today's seminar. I encourage you to keep in touch. If you're not already on the Sentient Forest Project list, please do so. Please send us your email address, and I'll make sure that you receive future updates. So until then, thank you so much to our wonderful 3 speakers for shifting our perspectives on these magnificent species. And thank you to you all for joining us from various parts of the world. It's wonderful how plants bring us together in these times of sometimes disconnection, right? So thank you, everyone. Have a great day wherever you are, and we hope to see you next time in partnership with plants always. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to present here. And looking forward to other events.
Thank you, Martyna. Wonderful to meet you, and loved hearing about your research on rhododendron. What a species.
Thank you.
What a genus.
At the moment, I'm doing so more.
Right at this very moment. Great. Fantastic. Good luck with everything, with your research. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Katja, for joining us. Thank you, Asa. Once again, wonderful to see you.
Kiitos, kiitos.